Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Beatty coming to you live from the McCarthy Middle School here in beautiful North Chelmsford as we bring you the results from this afternoon's townwide election. And with me, ably aiding as always, is Glenn Thorne. Nice to see you.
Thank you for the invite back. I appreciate it.
Well, who else would be here but you and I, right? Now, it's springtime and you would think that an election would warm up the town and get everybody really enthusiastic and coming down here in droves. I wish I could say that's true, but it wasn't the case. The rain really dampened the spirits. Glenn, have you had any feedback from people on the street?
Yes, it's wet outside. Some people are remembering who've been here long enough. The election was it 1997 on April 1st? It was a while ago when we had that huge snowstorm. And we actually had to cancel the election for 2 weeks.
Yes, that's right.
And start it back up 2 weeks later, and people had voted, and I was out holding signs that election because I think my wife was running or somebody was running for SELECTMEN that I was working with. And what a day that was. Well, at least it wasn't that bad this day. It was, above 32 degrees. So all that snow ended up being rain, but it's hard to stand out there and hold a sign for hours and hours on a time.
And there was really kind of a double whammy in terms of the results. One was the weather, and the other was that there was, although there were some contested races, there was no ballot questions,
Right.
No money to be spent.
Money questions.
Yes,
So on Arena, and the people who live in Chelmsford can get this off the town clerk's website. She did a study of the participation in the elections from year to year. And if you look at the curve, you'll see these occasional spikes. And when you go back to check out, well, what happened then, what happened then, what happened then, it's a Proposition 2.5 override, something else, it was another money issue. So you can almost predict the large turnouts when there's cash on the table. This election didn't have a contested school committee race, had a contested selectmen's race, slightly contested planning board race, and there were a lot of town meeting rep races that were just 6 candidates. Not my precinct, of course. Wouldn't be so lucky to have that, but there was some with less than 6 candidates. So you need to have a draw. And
I was actually noticing that this morning when I came in to vote. I was here at 7:15. It occurred to me that looking at all the different precincts, it is one of those times when there were just enough town meeting reps for each of the 6 seats in each of the precincts. 1 or 2 of them had 7. I think precinct 5 had 7.
5 and 9 had 7. I don't know about 2 and 3.
But I think it's unusual in the recent past because often those 1 or 2 of those seats go unfilled, and I think that's sad. And it's great that at least people were stepping up. So we have had, as we mentioned, a couple of contested races. First and foremostly for the 1 open seat on the Board of Selectmen. The incumbent, Bob Joyce, was being contested with Ken Lefebvre, and that's been an interesting race. On the school committee side, there was no contest, 2 candidates for 2 available seats. Al Thomas running for re-election, and newcomer Dennis King also joining the fray there. Town moderator John Curlin, not really surprised that he went uncontested. He's been doing a pretty good job in that role. And then I think the surprise of the election season is 5 candidates running for 2 seats on the planning board. Who'd have thunk it?
I don't know, and I was asking Mike Raceback outside, how did he and Nancy Arroway, the incumbents, get the 1 and 2 slots on that? And he said, luck of the draw. Yeah. I said, who drew? You? So it was. It was interesting to see the interest in planning board because that was totally unexpected.
Totally unexpected, and especially, I mean, it's not that Nancy and Mike are like unknowns or have lawsuits pending against them or anything like that. They've been pretty strong, pretty competent in that role, and we have not 1 but 3. We had Tim Shanahan, he's a firefighter in town, right? And,
I think so, yeah.
And an existing firefighter, and that brings back memories of Bill Dalton, right? Sitting on the Board of Selectmen and being a firefighter at the same time.
Many times. As a matter of fact, I was telling somebody the other day, when they asked why I've been a town meeting rep and why my wife has been since 1989, they'll say, we looked at going to a representative town meeting, and somebody said, town employees can run for town meeting rep. That's right. And oh, by the way, they can also vote in the budget for the town. I said, wait a minute. That means that if just town employees became town meeting reps, then you could get a situation where they're voting in their own races. I said, notionally that doesn't seem right. Why don't we just become town meeting reps so we can keep an eye on this thing? Never turned out to be that way.
Yeah.
But now I'm on the Charter Review Committee for the second time, was on it 10 years ago. One of the questions came up, should we make the number of town meeting reps smaller? And I explained to Joe Reddy the other day that, well, you could, but let's say you cut it down from 160 plus right now to 50. Would it be more likely that town employees could become the dominant force on the town meeting? Possibly. Some towns have many, many more precincts than we do, and 100 or 200 more reps of our size.
Sure. And also, there's a sense that, especially since you have 18 reps per precinct, and they have these rotating 3-year terms, any vagaries, for lack of a better word, in terms of personal preferences or whatever, tend to get averaged out with that many people. It is a little like herding cats sometimes at town meeting.
It's balanced to what it is, So now we're looking at, is it the right size or bigger or smaller? And generally, if something's not broken, you don't try to fix it. So if there was really a problem, then there'd be an issue about how do we solve that problem. So in the Charter Review Committee, we're looking to see where there are things that are getting stuck or not working right. There aren't too many.
So we've run down the candidates for you, and we will be bringing the results to you as they're coming in. We're here at McCarthy Middle School where about 6 of the precincts report, and we expect to be giving you those results as soon as we have them on our monitor here. For example, here's precinct 4, 5, and 6 together, I guess, showing Ken Lefebvre with a very strong lead over Bob Joyce. I would expect Bob to do well in Precinct 1, which is where he's traditionally had a lot of power. We'll have to see if this continues to play out.
Yeah, that must be 3 precincts because of the total number, but still 903 precincts is a small number.
That's right. Now we have 4 precincts adding Precinct 8. The lead still is quite strong for Ken Lefebvre. This is a pretty strong lead. These results are coming in. They're unofficial, and because we're so close to the action here, we expect them to pile up very quickly. Now we've added Precinct 1.
Almost an insurmountable lead that we're looking at right now.
And especially with Precinct 1, I would have expected Bob to do much better in that. Precinct 1 is the precinct surrounding the town hall and the new fire station, and Bob was very vocal in standing up for the citizens in those surrounding properties as the new fire station was built. So as I said, we're watching these come in. You're seeing them as soon as we are. Now, switching over to the planning board race, again with 5 of the 9 precincts.
Oh, look, it's exactly the same number.
Go figure.
1 and 2.
So incumbents Nancy Airway and Michael Reisbeck have very strong leads, it would seem, and we'll see if they continue to hold that as the other 4 precincts report. We do have, and we'll hold for now because the results are coming in hot and heavy, we do have the candidate statements that were pre-recorded at Chelmsford Telemedia. We'll just hold those in abeyance. I'm looking at, now we've added Precinct 9 to the total, and that's almost 75% of the vote going to Ken Lefebvre.
Now, 2 and 3 are at the senior center, right? Right, and so only Precinct 7 from the local input here would be tallied up against what we're seeing right now, but that's a very large margin.
Right, very large margin. Now, Bob Joyce has been on the Board of Selectmen. Actually, this is his second go-around. He's just finishing up his first term, and he's also had a term quite some time ago. Bob obviously has been active in very many boards, and Ken Lefebvre is a newcomer, and he is joining us now. We'll have him mic'd up and have some word from him momentarily. But in the selectmen's race, it's usually the case where you kind of pay your dues. You sit on a couple of committees. Maybe you're on the finance committee or something like that before you make that leap. But our newly elected designate town meeting town board of selectmen is here. Ken, welcome and thank you for joining us. I think if we can pan out to 3
Just
shots.
need a wider angle camera.
Just a little
shot here.
bit.
So
There he
we
is.
go.
There you go. So Ken, congratulations. It looks like you've had a pretty strong victory here. Are you happy with this? Is this what you expected?
It's a little overwhelming.
Now the real work begins, right?
Now the hard work begins, and I think it's going to be some hard work. I think there's a good challenge in front of us, and I hope I can, make the people of Chelmsford proud.
So we were just talking about how often selectmen end up after a sort of grooming period, but you dove right in, and as I recall, you kind of saw a need on the board. Your background is in financials, and you saw a kind of hole there that you felt your skill set fit.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to do something in the town where I could give back. Again, I've said this a lot in my campaign. I'm someone who measures my life often, and I feel I've been very blessed by everything Chelmsford gave us as a family, so I wanted to give back. And I think it's another example of not being in politics for 32 years. I didn't realize what other people did. I didn't realize the process. I didn't realize what was possible or not possible in the eyes of the town. So I just saw SELECTMEN and said that's a place I think it could be most utilized for the town, and went after it.
And so the campaign was a fairly normal one from the standpoint of the usual meet and greets and the candidates' nights and such. Did that give you a sense of what you were getting into?
Well, I think I had a pretty good idea what I was getting into because I spent a lot of time researching. I tried to reach out to a lot of the past selectmen, people who ran for selectmen, didn't make it, and current selectmen. So as far as time commitment, issues that they face, setting the expectation of potentially what it could be like 3 years from now, having people maybe not liking me. I have kids in the school, maybe having the schools not liking me. So I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting into. It took me a little bit to get in lockstep. The first debate was sort of a cut your teeth debate, but I think once I realized I just had to be myself, things sort of just really clicked for me. And I think once I ruled out what other people wanted me to do and what I wanted to do and just let myself be myself, things sort of just fell into place.
Was this a family decision? I mean, did you have a heart-to-heart with them before you jumped into this?
Actually,
and did they win?
well, I don't know if they won, but when I brought it up to my wife and I told her it was something I was thinking about doing, she immediately started sending me every morning these motivational clips and texts. One of them was fear, right? Capital F-E-A-R, and it was face everything and rise. So those are the type of things she started sending to me, and so she was behind me 100% right off the bat. But we'll see. I mean, I know there's a time commitment. They know also what's going to be needed of me.
Some of the things that were said during the debates, I think, resonated with a lot of the voters. One was you have a financial background, and there isn't a time that goes by without finances being part of the question and part of the answer. How do we control them and do things like that? And the other thing that you might not have expected was when you said you wanted to try and work to bring businesses into the town. I think people like that idea because they know that their taxes will be affected by business growth, being able to bring a stronger business base in there. Did you think about that all along, or were those some things that just came to you during the campaign?
I would say that those things came to me a little bit. I knew a lot about how the tax formula worked, and I knew where we needed to sort of offset in order to address the issue of rising taxes. I mean, I saw it firsthand. We all own property in town. You get a pretty good idea when the tax bills come out that they're going up, and
which is right before the election. So.
Ironically, but understanding how the formula worked, I knew that the only way to really offset the property taxes in any way is that side of the formula is driving up the income side. Understanding how a lot of the formula works as far as expense side, to try to think that we could reduce pension benefits or what's needed to fund them, or healthcare costs, which are the two biggest items in the budget. It it takes a lot to affect that side. As we were standing out there today, someone said, well, what about this cost and what about that cost? And I said, we've been talking for 15 minutes about it. If you add that all up, we're not even over $1 million yet. So we can nickel and dime the budget, but it's the other side of the formula we got to focus on.
Got to work on big numbers.
Big numbers.
And I think that was kind of a recurring theme throughout a lot of the debates, that even Bob Joyce said that there really aren't that many places that you can cut the budget.
Right.
It's really all about the growth. Do you think that's job one for the selectmen going forward?
Which one? Cutting the budget or
No,
growing?
increasing revenue.
Increasing the revenue, I think, should be job one, because the other thing too, and if you think about your own home budget, do you really want to just keep cutting expenses? I see seniors do it all the time. They cut because they really can't affect the other side of it. And now when I sit down after a few years talking to them, they don't have a landline. They're using a cell phone, and they're on the minimum plan, and they cut their cable, and and they cut, and you get to a standard of living where it's not comfortable anymore.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we now have all 9 of the precincts reporting, and you can see there on the TV that you've commanded about 75% of the vote in this contested race, and a pretty resounding victory for you.
Yeah. I want to take a second too to talk about Bob, because the one thing I'll say about Bob is I didn't know Bob going into this. I wasn't really after Bob's seat. I was after doing something nice for the town and really helping the town out. And I got to know Bob pretty well. We were left alone from time to time where we got a chance to talk. And I've grown to respect Bob, and I like him as a person. And I've said this to him today twice, and I hope he doesn't think they're empty words. I'd really like to reach out to Bob as a resource over the next couple of years, because I think I can use his experience. I'm not someone who thinks I know everything and I can do it on my own. I want to do it as a whole town. I'm going to need everybody's help. I'm going to need everybody's understanding, patience. And if you think you have the whole story, if you read something or someone tells you something, I can't beg you enough to do the research to make you have all the facts before you make a decision, because a lot of people came up to me today. A perfect example, someone said, well, I can't believe they're putting in 4 stories of 40B at the Win Stanley project. And I thought, that's not even close to correct. And well, that's what my neighbor told me. Well, before you get to that point, it's going to take a lot. But again, I'd like to lean back a little bit on Bob if he's willing to do that, and be able to reach out to him. Because I did find he and I saw eye to eye on a lot. But I'd like to bring my energy and my perspective to hopefully have different results.
Well, we certainly wish you luck. We'll be watching from afar as you get taking your place up there on the dais. And thank you very much for joining us this evening, and congratulations
Kelly,
again.
my pleasure.
Yeah.
Glenn, thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
So we're going to continue with the results here as they come in, and it's been an exciting night already. You can see the totals there. It looks like with all the precincts
That's all
reporting that the 2 incumbent candidates for the planning board will retain their seats, Mike Reisbeck and Nancy Arroway. And we're pleased to have Mike joining us. Mike, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very
Congratulations,
much.
Mike.
So was this a surprise to you that there were so many people running? Did you see that as something, what am I doing wrong?
It was a surprise, and the first question I did ask was, am I doing something wrong? But as it turns out, as best as I can tell, it was just a bunch of people in town wanting to offer something to the town in service, and the planning board seemed like a good place for them to start. They're all wonderful folk.
They thought you were having too much fun, and they wanted to get in on some of the fun. Well, it's a very important board.
Yeah.
I mean, you know by being on
Yes.
it that the decisions the planning board makes affect everybody.
Right.
So you have to have the right kind of perspective on how you want the town to look next year, 5 years, 10 years from now.
And the election is the way we determine whether we're going in the right direction.
Right.
Indeed.
So you mentioned something earlier, which is that often people use the planning board as sort of a first step.
Yeah.
And we had 3 people here who didn't, with the exception of Tim Shanahan,
Yeah.
didn't apply to be like an alternate on the board,
Yeah.
which is, I think, that's how
That's the
Nancy-
usual path in,
Yeah. They just dove in.
They did, and I don't know why that was. I think that perhaps in at least one of those other cases, it was just, going and pulling the papers and not necessarily realizing that there was a difference between the alternate and the
Yeah,
full position.
Tim Shanahan was on my ballot twice,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, he was. He showed up
Probably
twice.
yours too.
Yeah,
Well,
he was
that struck
indeed.
me as a smart thing to do because he was fighting two strong incumbents,
Yeah.
and he saw that as a way to get on.
Yeah, very good strategy, and well, he's clearly in as the alternate, so we'll be seeing Tim.
Great. Were you an alternate one time, Mike?
Yes, I was.
That's because I remember
did,
that. Yeah.
I did about a year and a half as an alternate. Nancy Arroway also did a year and some as an alternate. Most of the people on that board have done a shot at the alternate, and there's enough to learn in order to do the planning board properly. That's probably a very good way in. I would recommend it to anybody that wants to serve on the planning board. Take a shot at the alternate for a year or two.
Now, how often does the alternate change? Clearly, when somebody goes from alternate to the planning
Yeah.
board proper through the election process, it'll leave an opening.
Yeah.
But there's only one alternate.
There's only one alternate position, but honestly, most people never get to serve a complete term as alternate because every year or two somebody moves from the board, goes off and does something else.
Does the alternate automatically step up at that point, or effectively step up?
Well, effectively they step up. Now, depending on how long it is till the next election, you might just leave them in the alternate position. The alternate doesn't get to vote on everything, but they do get to vote on the special permits and the things that are the most critical.
So what do you think of the top problems, top issues for the planning board going forward?
Well, I think the first one is that we're coming up on 10 years with our existing 10-year plan, with our existing town master plan. The planning board typically initiates the work to get the next plan going, and I suspect that during this term we'll be preparing the way for the next master plan. The second is that we have to consider, now that we've done some zoning changes up on 129 in order to strengthen our position there, to improve the attractiveness, I presume that we'll start seeing some permitting requests coming in from projects that get started up there, and we're looking for that. And then there are lots of other issues in town as well, smaller ones, but important to somebody.
All right, so one of the interesting things about this election
Yeah.
is that you and Nancy won in every precinct.
Yeah.
Ken won in every precinct.
Yeah.
That's not that common to sort of run the table.
No, it isn't. I think, obviously, positions as incumbents helped. There's always the luck of the draw of position on the ballot, and I pulled 2. Nancy pulled 1. I bet I haven't seen the finals totals yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if she beats me.
She did,
Yeah, she did.
but not by much.
Not by much, but it does make a difference.
It's
Was there a
bragging,
little
bragging
side
rights,
bet?
right?
Yeah, well, I may have to pay for dinner.
Well, there you go. You can see it on our monitor down there.
Yeah,
By,
I'll be darned.
by 74. So,
Yeah, she did quite
yeah.
well. But I would like to say a couple of nice words about all of the people that ran for planning board. I got chances to talk to all of them at length. They're all serious. They're all interested in the town, and I hope they all wind up doing something for the town in one capacity or another. Maybe planning board in the future.
That's one thing we could say about Chelmsford. We have great bench strength for almost any position in town.
Exactly. Exactly.
And people in this town really care about the town, so they want to continually stay involved at some level or another.
And I want to maybe end, because we're drawing to a close here, nothing exemplifies that better than the school committee race.
Yes.
Because Al Thomas was not planning to run again, and he saw an empty hole. He saw he was going to have a school board with a lot of new members on it, inexperienced members, and he decided to throw him back in.
And that's dedication.
And that really is
That's
dedication.
Indeed.
As you have dedication. So congratulations, Mike.
Thank
Mike,
you.
congratulations.
Look forward to
My
seeing
pleasure.
you again. We are close to our end here. We haven't really gotten into the town meeting rep races, but you know, there were, with the exception of 1 or 2 precincts.
7, 9, maybe 2 or 3. I don't know. I think they were short
So
candidates as well.
And so we'll try to run those unofficially in the background later on this evening once we get them keyed in and up for you. But that's really about it. We've had 2 really interesting races, the incumbents, at least on the planning board rule. But when it came to the Board of Selectmen, it was a different story.
Looking for some new skills, a little bit of a change, and we'll see how the next 3 years turn out for Ken, when I know he's going to try hard.
That's right. He looks like a quick, steady all around.
This was an easy election. We didn't have to figure out what happened. It was the numbers were pretty clear.
When there was no money involved.
No money involved.
Except who picks up the bar tab at wherever people go.
I'm about to find out.
We'll have one for me. Glenn, thanks
Yes,
as
thank
always
you, Kelly, for
joining
inviting
us.
me back.
And we're going to toss it back to the studio and Chelmsford Telemedia. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Again, all these results are unofficial, but because the leads are so commanding, I think they're a done deal at this point. So I'm Kelly Beatty with Glenn Thorne. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you down the road. Town meeting, perhaps. Good night.
Good night.